Here.
Councilmember Peterson. Present. You have a quorum present.
Thank you. That's over there. Please stand for the, I'm sorry, before we stand, let's have a moment that oh, she's back there. I didn't see you come in. Pastor Woodard, would you please come up and offer the invocation?
To pray with you all tonight. Let us all pray. Eternal God, we thank you so much for this day. It's an awesome day that you have made, and we all shall rejoice and be glad in it. Now, God, I come praying for your guidance, your wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. We pray that our focus will be aligned with the needs of our community. Thank you so much, again, for all who are gathered here today and all you do for this community. And God, I pray that you would continue to give us grace to bring truth, justice, and stability to this area. Please help this council and community to do what's right and to rule in fairness. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Please allow us to grow closer as a group, as a community, to help nurture the bonds of your people. And finally, God, I pray that everything said and done in this meeting will ultimately be pleasing and acceptable to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, please be seated. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Okay, I think, did we make any changes since we posted? What?
Yes, sir. We removed 2 items off of action items and moved them to closed session, sir.
Okay. All right, need a motion to any other changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we welcome a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So move.
Okay. It's been moved. Second. And second. Any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Peterson?
Aye.
Councilman Brown? Aye. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Councilman Pete?
Yes.
Councilman Fields?
Yes.
That's a yes for me. That motion carries 6-0. All right. First on our agenda are awards and proclamations. Okay, first one is the National Mentor Month, celebrating and recognizing Coach Monty. Can I read it? It says, whereas National Mentoring Month is in January, it's a time to acknowledge the significant impact of mentoring of the youth in our community, empowering the next generation through guidance, support, and encouragement. And whereas Coach Monty Evans serves as a remarkable example of the positive influence a mentor can have, dedicating himself to the athletic and personal development of young athletes in our community. And whereas his contributions as a mentor include his work with the Dale City Lightning Track Club, athletics, and performance training, they reflect a deep commitment to the growth and well-being of young individuals. And whereas Coach Evans' own athletic journey, from his early start in sports to his time on the Michigan State University Spartans basketball team, has equipped him with valuable insights that he selflessly shares with his mentees. And whereas his efforts in building partnerships and promoting athletic events showcase the role of mentors in expanding opportunities and creating supportive networks for youth. And whereas Coach Evans' recognition by various organizations and his feature in national media underscore the far-reaching impact of his mentorship. And whereas Coach Monty Evans not only mentors young athletes in their sports endeavors, but also instills in them vital life skills such as discipline, teamwork, and resilience, preparing them for success both on and off the field. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council of Dumfries does hereby celebrate National Mentor Month, and we acknowledge Coach Monty Evans for his inspirational role as a mentor in our community. In witness, wherever I set my hand, cause the seal of the Town of Dumfries, signed Mayor Derek R. Wood by order of the council.
Thank you. Really appreciate this honor, Mayor Wood. I'd like to thank the council as well for considering me and pointing this out for Mentor Month. I like the title in itself. You know, a lot of people call me Coach Monty and go by that title, but I've always tried to be more than just a coach and just instill, as it said, a lot of discipline and just developing our young youth in the Woodbridge community. So thank you for this acknowledgement. I really appreciate that. And the Dale City Lightning family for supporting me throughout the years and for supporting the programs. Thanks for the nomination. And we will continue to enlarge our community in athletics and in academics for our youth. Thank you.
Yes. I will now present a National Human Trafficking Prevention Month proclamation to Ms. Chrissy Falls on behalf of PWC 100, which is an organization in our community that has and continues to advocate on behalf of missing and exploited humans. National Human Trafficking Prevention Month proclamation. Whereas human trafficking is a public health issue and crime that exploits the most vulnerable among us and weakens the health and well-being of individuals, families, and communities across generations. And whereas more than 20 years since the passing of the Trafficking Victim Protection Act, human trafficking still exists, including the forced or fraudulent recruitment, harboring, or transportation of people for labor or commercial sex. And whereas an estimated 27.6 million people are subjected to human trafficking globally, including cases of human trafficking reported in every U.S. state and territory. And whereas human trafficking can happen to anyone, but certain populations are disproportionately at risk, including people affected by abuse, violence, poverty, unstable living situations, social disconnection, or discrimination. And whereas people can be trafficked in person and online in industries such as restaurants, domestic work, construction, agriculture, and factories, and by strangers or someone they know, including employees, partners, and family members. And whereas human trafficking can be prevented by building individual, community, and societal understanding and resilience, reducing social inequities, and addressing the conditions that contribute to exploitation. And whereas the town of Dumfries is dedicated to ensuring anyone impacted by human trafficking can receive services that provide individualized care, understand the impact of trauma, and incorporate cultural and linguistic needs. And whereas a successful response to human trafficking requires a coordinated community-wide effort. Now, therefore, the Dumfries Town Council do hereby proclaim the month of January 2024 as Human Trafficking Prevention Month, reaffirming our commitment to increase awareness and education on human trafficking, making resources available to assist individuals and communities impacted by human trafficking, and build diverse public-private partnerships to support a more comprehensive response to prevent and respond to human trafficking. In witness whereof, what is this? Oh, I hereunder set my hand and cause the seal of Town of Dumfries to be affixed this 23rd day of January 2024. Ms. Falls, would you come and accept the proclamation and then say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I stand before you today with gratitude for your commitment to eradicating human trafficking. Your recognition of Human Trafficking Prevention Month is not just a proclamation. It's a beacon of hope to bringing about real solutions to a testament to your dedication towards creating a safer community. We are aware that events like Super Bowl can unfortunately contribute to an increased trafficking activities. These events attract large crowds, creating an environment ripe for traffickers to exploit vulnerable individuals. Likewise, some establishments meant to entertain and fun like casinos can also lure traffickers seeking to hijack that fun and good spirits for illicit purposes. However, it is in your foresight and proactive approach that gives us confidence. With your support, we can implement robust prevention and intervention strategies to safeguard our community against these risks, especially as we anticipate the success of this future casino. Have been in this fight for several years, working alongside some incredible community organizations we have here, like National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, ACTS right down the street, Northern Virginia Family Services, Reset 180, and Anti-Trafficking International. Collectively, we agree to prevent is key. We must address the social determinants that make individuals vulnerable to trafficking by empowering those at risk, strengthening community ties, and enhancing awareness. We can build a resilient community where exploitation finds no foothold. As we move forward, I look forward to partnering with you in these endeavors. Together, we can create an environment where safety and freedom are not privileges, but guaranteed rights for all. Let's continue to lead by example, showing Virginia and the world that Dumfries is not just a town, but a stronghold against those that seek to undermine human dignity. Thank you for commitment and courage and working together with us. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there any items you want to discuss? If not, I welcome a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved. Second. And second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Phillips.
Yes.
Councilman Pete.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Councilman Peterson.
Yes.
Councilman Brown. Aye. And that's a yes for me. That motion carries 6-0. All right, next on our agenda is the approval of the January 9th minutes. So everybody had the opportunity to review the minutes. Any changes, corrections, or a motion to adopt? So move. Okay, it's been moved
Second.
and second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call for the question. All right, Councilman Pete,
Yes.
Councilman Brown. Aye. Councilman Fields,
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
It's a yes for me. That motion carries. All right, 6-0. Next on the agenda is our citizen comment time. Were there any citizens who signed up to speak tonight? No? Okay. Did anybody come in late that didn't get the opportunity to sign in and speak during citizen comment time? Okay, great. We're rocking and rolling. All right, next on our agenda is reports and presentations. Okay, our first presentation is our CAFR by our Chief Financial Officer, Miss Stacy Jordan, please. The floor is now yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. We're going to go over the Town of Dumfries 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. We're going to have our overview, audit opinion, basic financial statements, which include government-wide, governmental funds, fiduciary funds, notes to the financial statements, supplementary information, and external auditor update. Overview. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide Town Council an overview of the results pertaining to the preparation of the audit of the fiscal year 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. The fiscal year 2023 or fiscal year 23 ACFR covers the period of July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2023, and represents the financial position and results of the town as of June 30th, 2023. The audit opinion, at the conclusion of the ACFR preparation and audit process, the town's external auditor renders an opinion on whether the town's financial statements fairly present the results of the town for the period reported. Types of opinions can be rendered as follows: unmodified, qualified, adverse, or disclaimer. The last three opinions are considered qualified opinions. Excuse me. At the conclusion of the 23 ACFR preparation and audit process, the town's external auditors, RFC, rendered the following opinion of unmodified. This is, the town of Dumfries have received an unmodified opinion for 5 years in a row. So congratulations. Okay. Good job. All right. An unmodified opinion is also considered a clean opinion. Okay. Let's move on to the basic financial statements. The ACFR presents up to 3 different types of financial statements as part of the basic financial statements. The types are as follows: government-wide statements of net position, statements of activities, funds financial statements, governmental funds, balance sheet, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, fiduciary funds, which is excluded from this highlight, but is a statement of fiduciary net position, a pension plan, which is included in note 7, which is in the back of your ACFR. Okay. Basic financial statements, government-wide. Government-wide includes both the town's governmental and business type activities. Statement of net position, which is Exhibit 1 in the ACFR, is a snapshot of the town's assets and liabilities under the accrual basis of accounting at the end of each fiscal year. The statement of net position identifies the types and amounts of assets available to support the town's operation and how much of the town owes to vendors and bondholders, and the town's net position is delineated based upon its availability to be used for future expenditures, okay? So as you can see in the presentation, this is as of 2023, and I put 2022, and you can see the net change of 12%. The total net position decreased for 23 by $1.3 million. But that is pretty much based off of the litigation having to go back to 23, okay? So I don't want you to get down or anything about that, but, all right. Statement of net position continued. Net position is divided into 3 major categories: net investment in capital assets, restricted net assets, and unrestricted net position. The total net position at the end of 2023 was $10,044,574. Okay. Statement of activities, Exhibit 2 reflects the town's revenues and expenses for its governmental and business type activities. Below is a breakdown of major sources of revenue for the town's governmental activities. The statement of activities continued. The below reflects the town's expenses for each of its major functions within the government activities. Governmental funds, the balance sheet or Exhibit 3 is comprised of 3 funds or fund groups: general fund, capital project funds. Primary or chief operating funds of the town account for all of construction projects for general public improvement, including those of business type. That's the capital projects fund. The general fund is a primary or chief operating fund of the town. At the condensed balance sheet as of June 30th, 2023, assets were $11,761,071. Liabilities were $8,115,562. The fund balance was $3,645,509. Okay. All right. Governmental funds continued. The general fund as of June 30th, non-spendable was $55,474. Restricted was $394,460. Committed was a negative $57 for capital projects. Unassigned was $3,115,000. $195,575 for a total fund balance of $3,587,589. The unassigned fund balance for the general fund decreased from $5,561,373 in fiscal year 22 to $3,584,252 in 23, or by 35%, $1.9 million. Statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, Exhibit 5 shows the town's revenues of source, expenditures categorized by the town's major funds or programs or other financing sources, and transfers for its governmental funds. At the end of June 30th, 2023. Expenditures exceeded revenues in the general fund by $1.6 million or 22%. Again, $1.2 million of that pretty much came for your litigation. Notes to the financial statement, long-term obligations of the $8.6 million in total obligation or liability, which is in note 6 within the ACFR. 7.3 was in general obligation bonds backed by full faith and credit of the town. Of those total obligations or liability, 413,000 was due or payable within 1 year. Okay, so that's not bad. Okay. And supplementary information within this ACFR budgetary data. General fund budget to actual information is on Exhibit 7. The pension data. And then supporting schedules would be such as like Table 3, which includes collection rates and stuff like that. Okay. And then up next would be Mr. Michael Moran from Robinson Farmers Cox.
All right. Good evening, council. Thank you for having me here tonight. Can you hear me okay? Thank you for having me here tonight to present the financial report for the town of Dumfries for the year ended June 30th, 2023. My name is Mike Moran. I'm a director at RFC. For tonight's presentation, I don't have slides for you. I do have the hard copy report. Stacy did a great job touching on a lot of the numbers I would have touched on myself. So what I'm going to do is kind of keep it at a higher level, and I'll walk you through some of the main parts of the report, and then the two other documents that go along with it as well. So if you'd like to follow along with me, if you could please take your report and turn to page 1. On page 1, you'll see the RFC header at the top. This is our first of 2 auditor type reports, and this is our report on the numbers themselves. This is our independent auditor's report. And as Stacy mentioned, for the year ended June 30th, 2023, I'm happy to let you know that you had an unmodified opinion, which is a good, clean opinion on the numbers themselves. So that's exactly what you're looking for every year. If you were to read a little bit more into the independent auditor's report, it talks a little bit more about management's responsibilities for the financial statements, along with the auditor's responsibilities. So if you could please now turn to page 4. On page 4, you'll find the start of the management discussion and analysis. If you don't get a chance to read through the whole report, which I don't really blame you. These things are about 100 pages, and some years are even more than that. The MD&A is really a good spot that will kind of give you a good narrative, a good summary of the fiscal year. So if you don't get a chance to go through all of it in detail, make sure you give the MD&A a good read. Next, you would please turn to page 10. And Stacy touched on the numbers within these exhibits, but just want to make sure I point them out to you that you know where to find them. But on page 10, on the left-hand side, you'll find Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1 is your balance sheet on full accrual. So this will include your long-term assets and liabilities. So your capital assets will be in here, your long-term debt, your compensated absences, so those long-term type items. And then on the right-hand side, you'll find your income statement, your statement of activities on full accrual. And if you could please turn the page again for me. On page 12, you'll find Exhibit 3. This is your balance sheet on modified accrual basis. So this does not include any of those long-term assets like capital assets or long-term liabilities such as debt. If you could flip again for me as well. On the right-hand side, you'll find Exhibit 5. Exhibit 5 is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So this is your income statement on modified accrual basis. And if you could flip again for me. And feel free, if anyone, if council, if you do have questions, you're welcome to stop me, or you can wait till the end, whatever is easiest for you, or whatever you prefer. On the right-hand side, you'll find page 16. 16 is the start of the notes of the financial statements. Kind of a good rule of thumb is as you're going through the exhibits and you see something on there you're not sure about or would like a little more detail on, go ahead and look through the notes. There's usually some more background on it that'll kind of help clarify those items. Now we're going to flip all the way towards the back. Page 95, please. Now, in other years, there's 3 auditor type reports. This year, there's only 2. This year, federal revenue was under 750,000, so there was no need for a single audit. Therefore, there's just 2 of these auditor type reports. The third would have been our report on the major program in the fiscal year. So this second auditor type report is our report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance and other matters. This is sometimes referred to as a yellow book opinion. You'll hear that tossed around. And for the year ended June 30th, 2023, we did have 1 material weakness. And if you can flip over to page 97 for me. That material weakness was for fiscal year and closing procedures. And really, really there were strides made in the current year from last year on this. We did have the same finding in the prior year. If there wasn't strides made, honestly, we wouldn't be presenting the report tonight. So this is about 4 months earlier than it was last year. So I do believe there's strides that have been made, but there's still a little bit of ways to go on this item. And then on the right-hand side, just kind of talking about the prior year, you'll see our prior audit findings. So you can see last year we had 3 findings that were included on the report, 2 material weaknesses and 1 compliance item. So we're down from 3 to 1 in the current year, so that is good. Any questions on the financial report till I move on to the other 2 items? No.
Just for some clarity, you said there was material weaknesses found the year before. These are not repeat findings, or are they repeat findings?
The 1 is a repeat finding, yes.
Could you expound on the difficulties in closing that finding?
Yeah, especially when there's some turnover in staff and new management coming in, and there's nothing to follow. There's no formalized policies, processes, and procedures. It's hard to kind of pick up when there's nothing really to look after and go off of. So I do think there was strides made this year in kind of getting those items needed to be able to, have those closing procedures and get those balance sheet items correct at year end. But it's definitely, it takes a little bit to make sure you get those items down and what processes you need to do each year, what items need to be corrected, and so forth. So for example, accounts payable, and this is very basic, but each year going through your accounts payable and just making sure that's, has everything that's been accrued back to the fiscal year, or looking at your receivables, making sure everything's been brought back to the fiscal year. So these are just, I'm not saying this is specific to this year, but that's some of those items in general.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to say the beautiful thing is now this was ending fiscal year June 30th of 2023. And we've already, if you look at the management response to that part of the audit, I think we've already hired, I think 2 or 3 people. We've designated Ms. Karen as our treasurer. We have an accounts payable department. So we've started to implement the staff so that this fiscal year we can avoid that same thing. And so just noting that now we have the staff in place so that those segregation of duties can now happen so that material weakness wouldn't be in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that was a good management response to the audit.
Any other questions before we move on? All right. On the paperclip on the back page of your report, there should be 2 separate documents. These are items that go along with the report itself. The first one are management comments and recommendations. So these are items that are more minor. These are our comments, our recommendations. They don't rise to a level of material weakness or significant deficiency or compliance finding, whereas that you would find on the report that we just talked about. Now, please keep in mind some of these, all of these for the fiscal year under June 30th, 2023. So yes, new staff has been hired, new policies may have been implemented or in progress, but this is what we found as of June 30th, 2023. So there are a few pages here of comments and recommendations, and I'll kind of summarize it to kind of give you a good gist, but feel free to stop me if anyone would like to get any clarification. The first 2 pages, there's a lot on policies and procedures. So just continuing to formalize those, get it written down. Sometimes people will even, and I'm guilty of this myself, I might know what I need to do and I might have it like informally written down and this is my process, this is my procedure. Just getting it out there formalized so someone else could follow it just in case there's any event of turnover or emergencies or anything along those lines. You also see same with like cross training and just making sure everyone can, pick up in case something happens. You just never know. Segregation of duties, Mary just talked about that a little bit. Definitely with the new hires, that's much easier to have those segregation of duties and kind of making sure everyone doesn't have their hand in too much or anything along those lines. Going over to page 3, there's just a little bit more on making sure there's supporting documentation for all the credit card expenses, any invoices, whether it's a sales receipt, invoice, something along those lines. You see a prompt payment, and that's just making sure invoices are paid in a timely fashion. There was a few instances of those. We also noted that at times the signature stamp was being used. So we just always recommend that that is not being used because it's hard for us to tell if that person actually looked at it or not. So so if it's a signature stamp, I can't always tell if that person actually saw it and approved it with their own eyes. There's an item on here about the urban highway maintenance. That's
Question, Councilman
Yes.
Brown?
So is it? I'm understanding these to be recommendations. Is this a requirement to have a signature or is it optional to use the stamp?
These are our comments and recommendations, so it's not required.
Thank
But honestly, if I continue to see it, I'd probably still recommend you didn't use it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just hard for us to tell if that person actually looked at the invoice and approved it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not requirement, it's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation, yes, sir. Mhm. Yep. And nowadays too, it's kind of, we've seen this with COVID. Everyone's been forced to go more electronic with items. So you could always have those electronic approvals. So you can always have that built into your policies and procedures. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If you flip over to the last page, there's just a few other items, two related, one related to the quarterly 941 forms. We were missing one that just wasn't filed this year. Making sure the bank reconciliations are more timely and as to my knowledge, they actually are now. So that was more of a comment that we saw in the beginning of the prior year and that they are caught up now. So if you look back at the report last year too, you can see we had, I believe, material weakness on that as well. So, and then the last one on there just talks about making sure, and I believe this is also corrected now as well, it's just making sure your VRS matches your payroll. So that's my summary of those. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to clarify. All right.
Councilman Fields?
This is a question, and if I may bring the town manager in on this question. And it's a question and a statement at the same time. You mentioned what we did not have coming into the end of 2023. Mayor briefly touched on it as far as positions. And if I may bring town manager into this, could you list for us, we'll put credit where credit is due, because this is your staff. Can you tell us what we didn't have for our staff positions and what you have now implemented and hired and posted and things like that, that we have now that you brought on to make sure that we have a smooth running government and finances and everything? Because I'm going to give that credit to you because you brought on these additional staff. So If
Thank
would,
you, sir.
please.
Thank you, sir. Well, in the finance department, we previously had one position who handled all of the financial aspects of the organization, as well as human resources, as well as VRS and things like that. Since the time that I've come on, we have hired a chief financial officer, a senior accountant. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. And we did have a young lady in accounts payable as well. Since I've came on, we've hired a CFO, a senior staff accountant, a grants and procurement manager, and we have appointed the treasurer in the treasury function. So we separated several duties and made sure we had the appropriate positions in place so we don't have the continuous audit findings, sir. So thank you. Bye, Ms.
All right, for the last item I brought with me today, that's in the back of your book, is our governance letter. So this is a letter from us, the auditors, to council. In this letter, we would highlight any significant audit matters, such as any new accounting pronouncements. Last year, for example, GASB 87 was implemented on leases, so that was a big one. There was nothing this year for the town. Also, if we had any difficulties in performing the audit, if we had any corrected or uncorrected misstatements, if we had any disagreements with management, if we had to consult other independent accountants, other CPAs, or if we had any other findings or issues. We had none of those items this year. There's no disagreements with management or difficulties in the audit or consulting other CPAs or anything along those lines. So it's a very standard letter this year, so nothing out of the ordinary or anything like that. But I just want to make sure I brought this to your attention that you know this is a letter from us to you, council. That's all I have for you tonight. Does anyone else have any questions for me?
I just want to say, it's good to see you in January.
I agree, and I hope next year I'm here even earlier.
Yeah, it's, this was one of the goals that this council set was an on-time audit and to be ahead of schedule, to make sure that we knew where we were financially so that we move forward as we start our budget season. And so it's good to see. My hats off to the entire financial staff for making sure we had an on-time audit. I applaud you all. And all the aspects for us, seeing what's in here from the previous fiscal year, to see that within 6 months, we've already pretty much answered a lot of your, the things that you're asking for. So that just shows the commendable that we have paid attention to the past audits and made sure that we fully begin to implement it. So thank you for being here in January. I think this is the first time in maybe 6 or 7 years that we've had an on-time delivery of this audit.
Yep, it's getting closer and closer to.
And here's the other thing I want to note as we come in this. When we changed and moved over here in 2018, and this is important to know, everything was done in ledgers and books. There was nothing done digitally and electronically, so it made it very difficult for you at the time to do your audit, because you always had to go to a file and find it, and you had to bring 3 or 4 auditors with you. Our audit bill was actually 4 times the amount what we're paying now, which was good. And over the last 5 years, we've begun to digitize it. A lot of that stuff is in. So we've come a long way in the years, and you've been with us, and your firm has been with us since I've been here since 2012 doing the audit. So it's good to see that we've made that. And I just wanted to make sure, again, I give kudos to the staff because it was a heavy lift. We had our previous treasurer was here for like 40 years, and the way they did things was very, what's the word?
Antiquated.
Archaic. Yeah, I was gonna say antiquated, archaic. So we've come a long way to get all our records up to date. So it's good to see that we've got this. So thank you again. Council, any final comments? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next is our town manager's report. See you later, Del City.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of Town Council. You have a copy of my Town Manager's Report. Briefly, I will highlight just a few things. We have improved our customer service transaction time in the DMV. We have gotten it less than 7 minutes to 6.35 minutes. 6.35 minutes, I'm sorry, 6 minutes and 35 seconds. After that, we moved down to, I'm going to highlight that we did launch our GoGov applications, which is Dumfries Citizen Connect. We've also have our 2024 Black History Month celebration, which is scheduled for Saturday, February 24th at Little Union Baptist Church. And that is located at 17150 Batestown Road. This year's themes will be African Americans in the arts. Moving down, we are pleased to announce that we are full in budget processing time. So FY25 departmental budget meetings will be sent out during the week of the 26th to the different department heads. I also had an update in regards to the class comp study, which is currently underway, and we should have it completed within the end of February, early March. I had recently received a question as it relates to the police department's accreditation. The police department has met with Prince William County Sheriff's Office and Manassas Park Police Department to learn about their accreditation process. And both agencies recommended that we purchase a software called Power DMS to assist with our accreditation process. So the department continues to update their outdated policies and procedures to ensure that they are compliant with accreditation standards. However, that process takes about 3 to 4 years to complete, just so I could manage expectations here. Okay. Lastly, last but not least, I am pleased to announce the town has hired 3 new employees, and I'll ask as I say their names that they stand up to be acknowledged. First, we've hired Ms. Cheryl Santos, who is our deputy town clerk. Secondly, we've hired Ms. Sandra A. Robinson as our planning and zoning administrator. And lastly, we have hired Ms. Tiffany Johnson, who is the executive assistant to the town manager and currently our public information officer as well. Mayor and council, I thank you for your time. If you have any questions for me, I am here to answer them.
Chair Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. Well, actually, I would like to thank the Department of Public Works for their work recently in making sure our streets were clean. Because one thing I'm a stickler for is making sure the roads are clean. I grew up here. Before I got here, I was in Philadelphia. And one thing I cannot stand is roads that are not clean and ice and snow and things of that nature. So they got on top of that, and I do appreciate that. I did have a question about accreditation. Could you explain to us and all citizens what that means exactly? Because when people hear things like not accredited, not approved, things of that nature, that sounds like a not legitimate organization. So could you kind of explain what that means, how they're allowed to function, and how we plan to get back into this accreditation?
So basically, it's an extensive review of all of the town's police department's policies and procedures to make sure it aligns with things nationally, to make sure we are above board. And as I understand it, it's making sure our department is being recognized nationally and accredited. So a lot of organizations, police department, are not accredited because they didn't have an extensive review of their policies and procedures. So what we're doing is bringing it up to standard so that we could be recognized nationally as well. I hope I've answered it. If not, I can get more information.
No, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Brown.
So thank you, Town Manager, for the report. The GoGov launch, can we just kind of get maybe a weekly or monthly tickler on how many people are signing up so we can see if that is actually we can use that? Because past weekend during the snow would have been good time to be using that application for the citizens if that was active and everybody was on board with that. And also the finance report, is that on our website? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, another thing I want to commend the finance department that I didn't. They are putting the monthly reports up there before the 15th of every month. So I mean, I'm checking sometimes on the 5th and the 6th, and where he was talking about that 30-day reconciliation on that. So I am seeing the reports. I remember it was a time where I wasn't getting it by the 15th, and so I'm able to see those monthly reports on the website. So I want to kudos to Ms. Jordan and her team because they are getting those on the website before the 15th, which is always helpful. Also, you answered the question. You asked the question I was going to ask about GoGov, as far as if we can see the numbers of how many people have currently downloaded, and if we can continue to push that out to get people there. Okay, Vice Mayor.
I actually had a question about the GoGov as well. This past weekend, when we had closure and dangerous road conditions, I thought that GoGov would be used to communicate those things. And it does not appear that it was, or was it and I missed it?
Ms. Prevost White, could you answer for us, please? Thank you.
Did you?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. We haven't integrated our Code Red into the GoGov. The plan is to integrate those two, to get those two softwares to work so that we just use one program and then it pushes it out to everything else. So that hasn't happened. We don't have everyone trained on the program yet. So we're waiting to get all the new staff up and running and trained to know how to use the software, and then we'll begin to integrate our current Code Red software with the GoGov software.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there an anticipated date for when that will happen? The winter is the time of year when we have there's a need for the most notifications, and we are halfway through winter now. So do we foresee it being done before winter so that we can put it to great use, what it was intended for?
We can plan on that. I don't think it's a hard process. It's just a matter of sitting down with our consultant to get that worked out. So fortunately, I was tied up
I understand
with the
that.
snow. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So, but I will continue to work on that to make that happen.
Town manager, could we set a goal, please, to have that accomplished by the end of winter?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
Councilman Pete.
Yes, I want to, I wasn't going to speak on it, but town manager, speaking to the GoGov, I think it's fair to say that we are in the beginning stages of the GoGov. And
Yes.
that we're gonna need some time to get this out to the citizens. Now, as far as notification go, that's something else. But as far as tracking who's utilizing this at this moment, I don't think that we need that immediately. We still have to reach this out to our citizens. And I believe that we should track this more so on a quarterly basis versus a week or a month, to give our citizens some time to get acclimated to the format. Yeah, that's all I say. It's going to be a process, because it's like moving, like the mayor was saying earlier, moving from etching in stone to going to digital. So it's going to take a little time to make that transition over to where the citizens are actually using the GoGov. And then again, a tool that I believe that we should use is to set up this newsletter so we can get that out. And I believe we will have a great impact on the usage of the GoGov once we as a town do our part as far as getting this out to the citizens. I'm not for sure of how many use the GoGov, the Destination Dumfries at the time, but I believe that we should look into some avenues and measures that will help us reach out to the citizens to let them know that this is available. I'm not for sure if everyone's watching the council meetings when they come aboard, when they come on, or if they do go back and review. But I do believe that it's going to be a nice process. But I do see great vision in this as we move forward and it comes to futation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Brown.
Just going back to the financial report, there was mention of wet signatures as a recommendation, and Madam Attorney, can we not use Adobe to put signatures on documents officially?
There are some, Mr. Counselor, there are some provisions of the state code that permit transaction of business by electronic signatures. I remember those provisions in the context of just commercial transactions. So I'll double check to see if that's available to us for official governmental business. I would think those kinds of considerations align, but I don't want to step out without knowing. So, you know, electronic signatures are authorized to conduct commercial transactions. I need to just check if there's any kind of variation for official documents.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So if possible, I think I would highly suggest that would reduce hard copy records printing out and have to maintain those records. So more efficient. I would believe it would be more efficient that way. Thank you.
All right, my last comments or remarks was dealing with both public information and civic engagement. First with the civic engagement, the Black History Program. And I know one of the things that me and Councilman Pete had created back in the day was kind of like a 60 and 90-day checklist to kind of see where we're at with the details and what's going on to kind of keep us in the loop so we can kind of know what the run of show is and we're not like surprised the day of type of situation. It kind of give us some insight or some intel on what's going on and how it is, and to be able to promote and market when people ask us, well, what's going on with your Black History Program with the theme. So if you can kind of get us over some details when you get a chance. And then with public information, I guess in there, so we see just like knowing in there, I don't know if there's a place in your report, you just tell us which type of, and this was great today that we see, I saw the advertisement, just let us know notices that's going to the newspaper so that we see everything that's going in. So like they're noting, hey, we're sending this out so that we.
Okay, just so I'm clear. So y'all want copies of the public hearing notice?
No. You can just note that, hey, it went out so that we know that we're seeing that like notices got advertised.
Okay, notices, okay.
Yeah, because you put the building permits and inspections. So I'm
Okay.
just like, yeah, just so we.
Okay, and as it relates to the Black History Program, we actually discussed that today. I did speak to Ms. Prevost White and Yvette, and just said they're gonna ask for the run of show. They just wanted to confirm with one more person to make sure that they're available to help us close out, and then y'all will receive a copy of the run of show for the Black History Program.
Perfect. They probably don't have a copy of that. We'll have to get them. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I think that concludes the town manager's report. Next, we will move to our, we don't have any introductory items. Our first action item of the night, which is a public hearing. Approving zoning text amendment 2024-001, amendments to our chapter 70 zoning of the Code of Town of Dumfries, Article 1, in general, section 70-1 definitions, and also in general, section 70-13, minimum off-street parking. Also, Article 3, Districts, Division 6, Business General, B1, Section 70-247A for allowable uses, and Article 3, Districts, Division 7, and the Business Neighborhood District, B2, specifically Section 70-282A on allowable uses. Mr. Tabor, that's a mouthful, but the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Chair Pro Tem, and members of council. The town of Dumfries has received requests for permits to operate businesses associated with uses currently not identified as allowed uses in the town code. Chapter 70, Section 70-11 of the Town Code, Uses Not Provided For, defines the process for amending the code if a use is not specifically permitted in any district which requires a recommendation from the Planning Commission and approval by the Town Council. Pursuant to the authority conferred by the Town Code and Virginia Code, the Town Council adopted a resolution during the January 9th, 2024 Town Council meeting, initiating consideration of zoning text amendment 2024-001, scheduling a public hearing and consideration of the zoning text amendment. The zoning text amendment would, 1, add the following uses to Chapter 70 zoning, Article 1, Section 70-1 definitions. School or studio for the arts, a school or studio where the various arts, for example, dance, music, painting, sculpting, singing, are practiced or taught. Related uses may include competitions, exhibitions, or recitals. Health club, also athletics center, fitness center, gym, martial arts studio, recreational facility club, yoga studio, a facility where members or non-members use equipment or space for the purpose of physical activities or exercise. Related uses may include competitions or exhibitions. The Town Code Chapter 70 definitions includes restaurant carryout definition. However, the use is not listed as an allowed use in any zoning districts within the code. Restaurant carryout is defined as an establishment with limited or no eat-in facilities that provides prepared food for pickup by the customer or delivery by a restaurant employee. The zoning text amendment would also, number 2, add requirements to Chapter 70 zoning, Article 1, Section 70-13, minimum off-street parking for the following uses: school or studio for the arts, 1 for each 4 seats if seats are fixed, 1 for each 100 square feet of floor area if seats are not fixed. Health club, 1 for each 125 square feet of usable recreational or social floor area. And restaurant carryout, we recommend a minimum of 5 dedicated spaces for employees and customers. Zoning text amendment would also, number 3, add the following to Chapter 70 zoning, Article 3, districts, Division 6 business, general business district B1 allowable uses, 1 school or studio for the arts, health club, and restaurant carryout. And 4, it would add the following to Chapter 70 zoning, Article 3, districts, Division 7 business, neighborhood business district B2 allowable uses, school or studio for the arts, health club, restaurant carryout. Adding the proposed new uses and restaurant carryout as allowed uses within business zoning districts would add additional offerings for goods and services within the town and serve to enhance efforts to promote business and economic development. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing, then reviewed zoning text amendment 2024-001 and voted to recommend approval of the proposed amendments to Chapter 70, Article 4 of the Town Code. Also, staff recommends approval. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, Chair Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, Mr. Tabor. I just have a couple of questions for you. So overall, it just seems harmonious with the zoning ordinance. So it's not anything concerning or alarming. Is this something that is in response to any particular applicant that has requested any such uses, or is this something that we're just being proactive and updating the ordinance because it was not an allowable use for these actions?
The former, we did receive applications for building permits for 2 of these specific uses. And we did also add a few uses that are popular or in a lot of communities, and we anticipate them possibly coming to the town.
Okay, so like with the other uses that we're adding, we're being proactive and
Yes.
making sure.
Yes.
Okay, good, because, so outstanding with that, because one thing that I've been, really, passionate about is making sure our zoning ordinance has been updated, and I've been really wanting to see that done. So I'm happy to see that you've, taken the next step to not only take the applicant's concern in action, but to make sure, that you took the initiative to add those other uses in there as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. With regard to these changes that are being made, are any of them likely to impact any businesses that we already have established here in the town?
The carryout business, there is an existing business that is a carryout business, and it is grandfathered because it existed prior to the zoning ordinance being established. This would make it, and so as a result, it's a non-conforming use. If this is adopted, it would become a conforming use.
Thank you.
You said if it's adopted, it's gonna be conforming or non-conforming?
Conforming.
Oh, so right now they're
It's
non-conforming.
non-conforming,
Okay.
correct.
Figuring out. All right. Was there any other questions to the staff report, Councilman Brown?
I would like to make a motion to adopt the.
We have to have a public hearing, so you have to give me a second on that. This is just the staff report. We're gonna go to a public hearing and then I'll let you make a motion.
Okay.
All right. Any Councilman Fields?
I'm sorry. Clarification. We have several businesses in town for carryout, so this will not affect any of them?
Businesses that are carryout only. There are existing businesses that have seating, interior seating, as well as carryout. The amendment would impact businesses that are only carryout, would add that particular use.
Okay. I'm trying to think of the one that, or two, or whatever, that's only carryout. And off the top of my head, I cannot. I'll figure it out later.
Okay.
All right, so I will open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed up? Was there anyone here to speak to this ordinance that just didn't get a chance to sign up? Okay, going once, going twice. The public hearing is now closed. All right, I just want to say this is, I think these amendments are good. I know in the past, we've had people that wanted to open up dance studios that just couldn't. I know Caprice, who comes and does a lot of stuff for us, wanted to open up at one time, and because this wasn't in the ordinance, I think she's in a better place being in the mall, but we had the opportunity to keep that dance studio down here in town, and as well as some of the others. And a gym, I didn't know gyms was nowhere in our ordinance, and I know we've had several gyms that come and go that was in town. So this is good that we're getting all of this into the ordinance so that we can have it now. All right, Mr. Brown, you wanted to make a motion, you said?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to adopt the recommendation subject to amendment to page 181 to include 5 dedicated spaces for employees and customers for restaurants and carryouts.
Is that as presented? Or you added some stuff to it? That's
Adding.
okay. Did you get the addition? State it one more time for us for the record, so we.
To adopt recommendation subject to amendment, page 181, to include 5 dedicated spaces for employees and customers for restaurants and carryouts.
So you're adding parking?
Spaces, yes, dedicated parking spaces.
Okay. And you want that to permanently be in the ordinance, that they have these 5 parking spaces? Okay. I second it for discussion. All right. I second the motion. All right, now it's open for discussion. Vice Mayor.
So the requirement for parking spaces, isn't that something that's regulated higher than this dais as far as whenever there is a restaurant or a building or something of the like? Isn't there regulations or mandates on how many parking spaces are supposed to be in place based on the size of the parking lot and then how many are to be handicapped, et cetera? Isn't that something that's already mandated?
The number of spaces required per use is defined in our zoning ordinance, in our town code.
So if it's already there, is it necessary to add that as a part of this motion for this public hearing?
Yes, unfortunately, it is not currently in our code for that specific use. A parking requirement is not in our current code for the restaurant carry-out use.
Okay, now can I address Councilman Brown?
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to adjust the chair, but you could be adjusting him.
Thank you. So what I'm trying to understand then is, Councilman Brown, provide me a little more detail. Help me understand what it is you're asking, because what I think I'm hearing is that you want to add the amendment to include 5 dedicated staff parking spaces to any restaurant. But when we put a number on that, doesn't that number have to coincide with how much space is available for parking, period? Because if we have a restaurant that only has a very small parking space, and then we require in our ordinance that they have 5 spaces for staff, that may not be something that's doable based on the size of the parking lot or parking spaces, the parking size for this restaurant. So could we be potentially inconveniencing or imposing a one-size-fits-all that doesn't fit all? So could it be a percentage of parking spaces versus a dedicated number?
Possibly.
So I think, well, the recommendation was for both staff and customers, a total of 5 for staff and customers for the business, not just staff, for both staff and customers. And within the code, for a lot of uses, the number of spaces is based on square footage, but we can think about a takeout only a carry out only restaurant. The square footage would be small, right? So it would probably only require 1 space, but 1 space probably would not be adequate for a business, for their staff and for their customers. So we would recommend a minimum of 5 for that business so that they would have adequate spaces for their staff and for their customers.
So if I wanted to open up a business and it's a very small place in a small location, if that business parking lot doesn't give me enough room for 5 spaces, does that mean I can't open my business? What I'm trying to get at is, what makes more sense to me is if the parking space minimum requirement is based on the square footage, which is typically how parking spaces are regulated, right? If you have X amount of space, then you have to have X amount of parking spaces. X amount of those parking spaces have to be dedicated to, for instance, handicap. If we go on record to say, no matter what carry-out business or restaurant or whatever it is, you have to have 5 spaces, that still seems to me like a one-size-fit-all implication that everybody may not be able to meet. And if they can't meet that, does that prohibit them from then having their business?
I guess the last part of the question, yes, if they could not meet those minimum parking spaces, they would not be able to operate. We could amend the number of spaces, but the recommendation would be that we do establish a minimum number of spaces for the business. It could be 3, it could be, 2, but at least spaces for the business owner and or staff, and at least, 1 customer for the business.
Okay, I would prefer if instead of putting out a one-size-fits-all requirement, that it was something along the lines of based on the size that's available. So a calculation or a formula, so to speak, which is what I believe is typically used, is a formula. If you have X amount of space, then it has to be divided into X amount of parking spaces.
Let's see. So for restaurant nightclub use, we have 1 for 100 square feet of retail floor space. We could certainly use that standard.
I don't know if that's the most appropriate standard. That's not my lane, but I still would rather if it were a formula versus a one-size-fit-all approach. I yield. Thank you.
All right, so we ran into this 5 or 6 years ago with the daycare right over here. And the daycare, because of where it's at, where we're building the entrance to the roads now up that hill there, the issue became we wasn't gonna let them open their daycare because they didn't have enough parking spots to open their daycare. When people were just coming to drop kids off and leaving, they wanted them to have staff parking and customer parking. So we were gonna turn away this commercial business. I think me and Phils was on, and we had to give them a conditional use permit to open. Our challenge here is currently we don't have any street parking, right? So we know we have no government, we have no public parking, it's in our Main Street pattern book that once we realign and we move the south side of Route 1 to the other side, that we will have street parking, right? And so we're confined. That's why we see some of the vacant parcels of land that's undeveloped, because all of them come with designs. And the biggest constraint, they come, and I hear the complaints because they come tell me, well, why do I have to build all of these huge conglomerate of parking spots? And so rather than us having commercial development, they don't have any parking. And so they just, they can't build. I feel, it's a conundrum. It's a tough place to be in, right? We want to build a thriving downtown, but we're looking for, and I know we don't have we're not a big city like DC or New York where we have the commercial parking and the situations where people can come, but we want businesses to come. And I think this type of restriction, it prohibits saying that we're open and we're welcome for business, right? It's a restriction. I know you're looking at it from a planning and a safety, where a customer's going to come. All right, I'm looking at the main business that we're all looking at on Batestown and Route 1 right here in Main Street, right? It's at the end of that curve. There is 5 or 6 parking spots there now, and it's a carry out, right? Do we put a requirement on it? I'm just saying we've seen it where we had to turn businesses away because they could not get the parking blueprint. So it's just like I'm more pro developing a business. That's just me, than to put more restrictions on a business being able to come and open. So that's just I agree with you that I don't know if because I think that the daycare was a square footage, and because the daycare was so big, they needed 1 more parking spot, and then they had to borrow some land from their neighbor to say it was a parking lot, and they had to get an agreement for us to allow that daycare to open because the square footage said they needed 6 parking spots. So, I don't know what was right in that. Councilman Pete.
Oh, well, I was just gonna piggyback off what you guys were saying, and that was just more so to the Tasty Kebab that's right there at the Fork. And like you said, that Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor, they only have like 7 parking spaces already. And for us to put 5 in there, that might be a little overreach. I think it'll be being that we have to have it in our order, that we take a look at what we have in the town now and just see what can work for everyone. Yeah, there's a way to make it work. One or two, I'm comfortable with two. I don't know about the rest of council, two staff members. And we keep it rolling so they can get them doors open.
Councilman Fields.
I don't think we should spend all night being bent around the axles on parking spaces. We can pass this without the amendment that Mr. Brown has suggested, and we'll handle parking spaces another time. You already have an ordinance in place for that. As it goes to the square footage and everything, we could sit here a whole daggone hour talking about some daggone parking spaces.
But it needs to be done.
Not at this time.
I kick the can.
No. It could be passed without the amendment that Mr. Brown was saying. Y'all two just agreed on it. We've been around that four about parking spaces. We already have an ordinance in place for it. So let's move forward at this time. We already got something in place. Pass this legislation or whatever you want to call it without the amendment.
Chair Pro Tem, do you have? Okay. Madam Town Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, may I be heard on this, please?
Absolutely.
All right, so the challenge here is that if you look at the form that's in your agenda packet, where the carryout restaurant use was added to the parking requirements, there was no recommendation there. There was a question mark. And so if you adopt it as presented, that's how your ordinance is going to look. So with respect to the addition with the new category of use, there would be nothing there. It doesn't borrow naturally from any other category that has a minimum parking requirement already assigned to it. So I would think the better course of action would be to put a number there. It doesn't necessarily have to be 5 as recommended, but put a number there to either be later modified or alternatively, if it's low enough, you have a minimum threshold that seems to satisfy everyone. So rather than the 5, 1 or 2.
Okay.
But that would be my recommendation, simply based on the form. And the form wasn't, the form just sort of moved a little bit fast through the process. There would have been a recommendation in accord with what was verbally communicated to the body tonight in that form had we just caught that in enough time. So I apologize for that oversight, but we're trying to correct it so that when you say approved, it's approved in its correct format. Thank you.
Chair Pro Tem, did you still want to speak?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna come to Brown, then I'll come to Vice Mayor.
So, I don't know if I need to, retract,
Want to withdraw the motion?
withdraw the motion, but I do want,
I'll withdraw my second.
what, I didn't withdraw yet.
Oh, okay.
But I do want to stress the point that we're talking about parking spaces for carryout vendors and not storefronts. And so that does imply that someone is borrowing some spaces from somebody else. And then we're looking at the public safety part of that. And yes, we want businesses to come, but at some point, we're gonna have a problem with parking if this gets out of hand. And we don't have any regulations in place to say what needs to be in place. So whatever that number is, I think it should be a number. And I think we should be prepared to adjust that number when need be. And with that, I withdraw my recommendation.
Well, I wanted to keep my second, but I'll withdraw it. All right, so we're looking for a motion on the floor here. So I'll make a motion to adopt it with 2 parking spots at the carryout.
Second.
Okay. It's been motioned and second. Any discussion, Vice Mayor?
I was going to suggest versus the square footage being based, the square footage calculation being based on the building size, which is what the issue was with the daycare, that the square footage calculation be based on the size of the lot. Because that way you could have a big building such as a daycare but a daycare may not need 12, 13 parking spaces just because it's a large building. Instead, if the calculation for the requirement or minimum requirement is based on the size of the lot, that to me would make it so that it could be tailored per business. I also do not agree with kicking the can down the road. We're talking about it now, let's finish it and then don't have to look back. So that's my recommendation, that there is a minimum requirement based on a calculation that's used on the lot size versus the building size.
Mr. Tabor, I know there's a motion on the floor, and it's just discussion, but here's the question: Is the current regulation not on carryouts, but on everything else? Is it based on lot size or building size?
It is based on square footage, so that would be the space of the business.
Of the business.
So even if a business is leasing space, for example, downstairs, if a business leased space downstairs, and it was a 10 by 10 foot space, that would be 100 square feet. So potentially, if one space is required per 100 square feet, they would be required to have a dedicated space for the business in our parking lot, one space. And if it's, 200 square feet, it would be, two. And that would be an option.
Okay. All right. There's a motion on the floor, second, and Chair Pro Tem.
So I have some concerns with the two parking spaces and on case being, most businesses, you're gonna have at least 2 employees there for safety reasons and all kinds of things. So you have 2 employees there, they're gonna drive separately unless it's a family business or something like that. And you have if you only have 2 dedicated spots, you have 1 customer, there's nowhere for my customer to park. So where I understand we want to bring commercial businesses here, if there's no place for these people to park, when they get there, they're gonna drive somewhere else, which is not doing anything for bringing commercial businesses here. So I would think a minimum of 3, because if the people don't have anywhere to park, they're not shopping here, they're not bringing their business here. So I would think you'd have to go 3, because I don't see any business that has less than 2 people working at a time.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? All right. Well, seeing none, I will call for the question. All right. Councilwoman Peterson?
Aye.
Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem?
Nay.
Councilman Pete?
Yes.
Councilman Fields?
Yes.
That's a yes for me. That motion carries 6-0.
6-1.
6-1, I'm sorry. Thank you. You said you. All right. Next on our agenda is to authorize a closed session pursuant to 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to consider the following matters under section 2.2-3711 Alpha 6 of the investment of public funds where bargaining is involved and where, if discussed publicly, the financial interests of the town would be adversely affected, and to the extent needed by these specific discussions. 1, personnel matters, including the assignment, performance, and discipline of specific public officers or appointees pursuant to 2.2-3711 Alpha 1. Under section 2.2-3711 Alpha 8, to consult with our legal counsel for the provision of legal advice related specifically to these discussions. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Pete?
Yes.
Councilman Fields?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem?
Aye.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
And that's a yes for me. That's 7-0. We'll give everybody a little bathroom break. Let's convene at 8:35 in closed session. I need the, hey, welcome back. We have now completed our discussion in closed session and we're ready to come back out in open session, whereas every person that votes to this resolution, that they vote that only items permitted, heard, and discussed were done so by the resolution in which we went back into the closed session for, in accordance to, what's our section code, town attorney, because I don't have it in front of me.
2.3711
Yep, 2.23711 alpha 1
and 8.
and alpha 8 and 6. All right, just want to make sure I get all the codes in the record. There's all my Virginia state codes. All right, so moved.
Second.
And it's second, any discussion? All right, Councilman Pete,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem,
Aye.
Councilman Fields,
Yes.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Brown. Aye. Councilwoman Peterson.
Yes.
And that's a yes for me. Motion carries 7-0. All right, we have one action item.
Mhm.
All right, what's,
The action item is the appointment to the ARB board.
Okay.
Oh, it's a motion.
So move.
Second.
Name the individual you're appointing.
Oh, do we? Oh, the action is to appoint Monique Wood to the ARB board.
So move.
okay, second. All right, it's been motioned and second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Peterson.
Aye.
Councilman Brown. Aye. Vice Mayor,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem,
Aye.
Councilman Pete,
Yes.
Councilman Fields.
Yes.
And that's a yes for me. I think we've exhausted our agenda. Looks like the last item on the agenda is, adjournment. This meeting is now adjourned.